I'm Heather. After many wasted years trying outdated approaches to my daughter's addiction that felt wrong to me, harmed our relationship, and didn't help my daughter, I finally found an effective, evidence-based approach that repaired my relationship with her, helped me create my own peace of mind, and made me an ally in my daughter's recovery. I teach you a loving and compassionate approach to help you encourage change and create connection. Addiction impacts the entire family system. Family recovery is the answer. I'm excited to share the conversation I had with Judith Gaton. She is a master certified life coach, personal stylist, lawyer, and entrepreneur. She's also the author of the book, How to Be a Fucking Lady, a modern guide to being charming and fierce AF, and the host of the scintillating podcast, Style Masterclass with Miss J. She is the founder of Modern Charm School, an exclusive online social club for women who are ready to leave their mark on the world. Whether it's through style, commanding more, or creating wealth, she will be the guide you need to take your life to the next level. I heard Judith on my mentor's podcast, and after listening to her for a few minutes, I knew that I needed to have her on my podcast for a self-care episode. This is an expanded view of self-care, though, so stick with me. I heard her say, how you dress is an outward reflection of your thoughts and feelings about yourself. At first, I resisted it, but then I thought about all the times I've been really struggling and how it affected the way that I dress. When I was at my lowest moments with Helena's addiction, it showed in my appearance. I felt like a failure as a mom, like I had somehow ruined her life, and that things would never get better. I gained a lot of weight, but I only bought cheap clothes that weren't even my style. My hair was falling out and breaking off, so I didn't fix it. I just wore it up in a little clip every day. I hardly ever wore makeup. The way I looked and dressed was a reflection of my thoughts and feelings at that time. Before that, though, when I was loving my life and myself, I loved dressing up. Like I wore high heels and jewelry. I had purses that matched my shoes, and I was very intentional with how I dressed every day. I was active. I took care of my health. Again, my appearance was an outward reflection of my loving and happy thoughts and feelings about myself at that time. When I started working with my coach after years of struggling with myself, I started taking ownership of how I was letting Helena's substance use affect my life. And that ownership included being intentional with how I was thinking and feeling about myself. And when my thoughts and feelings changed, so did how I dressed, and how I took care of my health changed as well. No matter what's happening in your life, what you put on your body is something that you're in control of. Focusing on what you can control is so important because you can't control your child or their substance use. There are times I think life's really hard right now, so I need to look extra cute today. And I put some extra time into my appearance, whether I'm going to see anybody or not, because I still have to look at the mirror. And when I see myself, if I haven't put any effort into my appearance, it's not going to feel good. It's just going to add to the day. And sometimes I have days where my emotional and energy resources are low. So I just wear yoga pants and a t-shirt, but they're not like grungy leftovers. They're clothes that I bought intentionally for those days. And I show up completely different in my life when I take time to fix myself up a little. I hope you enjoy this episode. There were so many things that Judith said about self-care that align with how I talk about supporting your child. It was this nice, unexpected surprise. So notice what you hear that reminds you of that as you listen to the episode. Hi, Judith. Thank you so much for being here to share all this information today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited that we're able to connect and meet. And we chatted a little bit beforehand. And I think we both realized at some point, like, we probably should start the episode.
Right. So let's go into why what you wear is so important. Why does it matter and how does it affect your life?
Yeah. So I think it's fun to back up just like two steps. And it's not necessarily what you're wearing that matters so much as how you come to select a choice of what to wear. Right. So when we go into our closets every day, it's because we're thinking a certain thing, we're feeling a certain way, and that affects how we decide to dress ourselves or not get dressed, how we decide to get ready or not get ready. So for a lot of my clients, like rushed is the emotion that's driving their morning, right? Like they picked a, say like the holographic to-do list queued up and like all the stuff that they have to do and like fur babies and actual human children and like all the things are happening and they start to get on their phone and then 20 minutes have gone by and then they have to make lunches and then this happens and then so by the time it comes to like actually taking care of themselves, they're pressed for time, they're very rushed, they're exhausted already from probably staying up too late the night before, and that's how they're entering their day. So when you go to your closet and you're feeling rushed, and then on top of that you have a closet full of things that don't fit you, that you secretly hate, that you maybe bought on sale and you know you really really don't want to wear, that's how you're starting your day. So what do you choose? Well, you probably choose the same 5 things that you always choose, like the good black pants. And the only reason they're the good black pants is because they happen to be clean and they don't have any holes, right? Like we get into these ruts and that's how we're starting out our day. So it's not necessarily the clothes themselves that are the important part. The important part is if we back this train up, how have you been taking care of yourself from the night before to the morning of to the time it gets ready? That's why this becomes really important. So like the clothing is just like this beautiful little highway. I like to say conduit sometimes to like your heart and mind and how you've been taking care of yourself and what your relationship with yourself is like. So that's why all of this matters, because we get to reverse engineer what is ever happening in your heart and mind.
Okay, there's just so much good stuff in there. One, I was laughing when you said that about the emotion driving getting dressed is being rushed, because that's totally me every day. And then having a closet full of things that you secretly hate. A couple of years ago, like I had this huge closet that had like the out of season racks and everything in it. It was jam packed. Like there was not room for anything else in there. And I realized that I only wore maybe a third of those things. And I got rid of everything that I didn't wear anymore for the first time ever. And it was like we had moved out of the house or something. But, and now still, so I don't keep a huge inventory of clothes anymore, but I still have a closet full of things I secretly hate.
But that's all of us, right? Like, I think every human who's probably listening can relate to that. Like, the 80-20 rule is always in play. We have all this stuff and we use about 20% of it, right? We have all these books on our shelves. We probably have read maybe 20% of them. Like, we have a closet full of clothes. We wear about 20% of them. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just sort of human behavior. But the fun question is like, why? Like, how did I get to this moment in time? And sometimes the secretly hating it is because we don't fit into them. They're too small. So they're now, instead of being goal clothes, and I put that in air quotes, they're like little shame piles, reminder of a failure. Or they're clothes from a past life, right? I have a lot of clients who like, when they went into retirement, it's like, I wore suits my whole life. Now what do I wear every day? And I'm like, whatever you want. That's just such a daunting thing to say to someone like, wait, I have all the choices available. So like, however we came to this moment in time where we have 80% of the stuff in there is just abhorrent to us. It's good to pause and ask ourselves, like, why? What is it that I'm responding to when I walk into this closet? And for each of you, it's going to be like various scenarios, but it's good to check in and kind of ask, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, I love that question. Like, how did we get here? And then thinking of it as part of your self-care routine. Because when I first heard you talk about that, it took me a minute to make the connection. But then when I did, I started thinking of all of the ways when I was struggling with self-care and I wasn't really taking care of myself. And my thoughts and feelings about myself weren't that great. It reflected in how I was dressing as well. So it really stuck to me to think about how, like, when a parent is really struggling with their kids' substance use and they're really focused on their child and not themselves, how what they're wearing can really be reflected in their self care. So if somebody isn't maybe feeling the best about themselves, what's a good way to get started trying to make how they're dressing part of their self care routine?
Yeah, I love that we're segueing here because I think this is such like a great gentle place to start taking care of yourself where the stakes are really low. And it does not have to be an overhaul. And hear me out, y'all, because I think sometimes on TV we see like makeovers happen and all this money is spent and all of this like stuff happens. The whole life is up. And I love the idea of that, but that's not reality, right? When we see, Julia Roberts go into the dressing room for Pretty Woman, we never actually see her try on the clothes and have clothes that don't fit her. It means that's not real. So that's not most of our experience. So for those of you, especially if you're caring for a loved one in the throes of addiction, it's super important to really, really take care of yourself. I think, and I'm going to start really, really slow. Meet yourself where you are. For some of you, that means we're going to shower today and we're going to celebrate the heck out of showering. We got up, we actually got soap, we turned on water, we got in the shower. Like that actually is worth celebrating, especially if you're really, really struggling because somebody that you love so much is struggling. Okay, that's real talk, right? For some of you, it's okay, I shower, but I never seem to get to the like getting dressed phase other than like jammies or, clothes that I wouldn't dare to be seen in. And I just want to lovingly say it's really the same amount of math. If you're putting on a top and a bottom, it really is just as much effort to put on like a pair of trousers as it is to put on a blouse, as it is to put on a t-shirt and jeans. And there's nothing wrong with t-shirt and jeans. There's absolutely nothing wrong with even just fresh pair of jammies. Like I have some clients who suffer from chronic bouts of depression, and we do what we call one boob at a time protocol. Now, if you're not in a female identifying body, pick your pleasure, right? Like one button at a time protocol. And really the whole concept is we're just going to celebrate teeny tiny action steps to help us get to a place of self-care again. So for some of us, it's like, I got out of bed today. And I'm like, okay, when you swing your feet off the bed, you can be like, yes, all right, my feet have hit the floor. I've gotten out of this bed. And it's like, okay, all right, we can walk to the bathroom. We can walk to the bathroom. We got this. We can walk to the bathroom. Okay, we're going to walk to the bathroom. And you're like literally so deliberately, and it'll feel cheesy as heck. And it'll cue your inner eye roll. Totally okay. Because there is something like they've actually done scientific studies, even faking a smile, eventually you will naturally smile. Faking a laugh, you will naturally start to laugh. Right. So faking excitement about washing your ass today, like that might be where it's at, my friends. And that is totally okay. Right. So then I'm going to celebrate putting on a bra, or I'm putting on fresh jammies, or actually getting dressed, or going outside of my room today, or, eating something a little bit healthier, whatever that means to each one of us, right? Whatever it's within your budget to do, like celebrating one boob at a time, one button at a time, one step at a time to help foster yourself. And that journey is going to look different for each of us. You just meet yourself where you are.
I love that meet yourself where you are because that's a big part of harm reduction, and loving somebody who's struggling with substance use is meeting them where they're at is really important. So, and just easily applying that to ourselves, meeting ourselves where we are, being gentle with ourselves, not judging for where we're at, and celebrating the small wins. Again, I think that that's really something I talk about a lot, with celebrating the wins with changes in yourself or with your kids. So I like celebrating the wins in this self-care way of even showering is a win, getting fresh, clean pajamas on is a win. So it's not so much what you don't have to be dressed up, just have to do something for yourself that feels good.
Exactly. Like I had a close family member who was addicted for a long time. He's sober now. He's on his journey. And I remember we would celebrate if he'd come, like he would, they had an arrangement where he lived outside his parents' house for a while, but they knew where he was. So he was in their shed on their property, but that's what worked for their family to help him on his road to recovery. And what we would celebrate when he'd come in and shower. And we'd be like, dude, like, how are you feeling? He's like, I feel clean. That was huge for him. If we didn't like minimize that, it would have thrown him off. Like that's how eventually he moved back in the home, and then he got help. Like there's these tiny steps, and literally started with him just like he'd come in to shower, and we were so excited, and not overwhelmingly so. We were respectful of like him being at his space and not overwhelming him with our excitement. But internally, we were like, "Yes, we're doing the thing, showered today," and just like getting clean, like even metaphorically, right? Just that first little act made a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that. And that is a lot of what I did with my daughter too, like celebrating those small wins with her, little changes that she made along the way, because it is, especially like if you are living in a shed or the place that my daughter was living, there a lot of things weren't working. And so it was a big deal and a lot of work sometimes to get a shower. So I'd even go pick her up and bring her over to my house to shower sometimes so that she could take a long shower and just relax and enjoy herself. So I love that story. Thanks for sharing it. You also said you define style as an outward reflection of your thoughts and feelings about yourself, which I love that because we have a thought that creates a feeling and then we take an action from it. And then that can be either going back to bed or getting up and taking a shower. But can you talk more about how that works in terms of style?
Yeah, I think we've all been socialized to believe that like the clothing is what creates the emotion. So it leaves us a little powerless if we don't like the clothing we have in our closet, number one, or we don't like whatever our body's doing and the clothing's not fitting us. So then it becomes this like love hate relationship. We're always trying to change our bodies to fit into clothing. But if we take the idea that the clothing's somehow magical, which we're sold on, right? Especially like during the holidays, I see this a lot. Like, find the right dress, your season will be merry and bright. Like, find the right dress, you'll get engaged on New Year's. And it's just like kind of nuts, right? We really think about this, right? The clothing isn't magical. It never was. There's always a person wearing the clothes that brought the magic. And if we remember that, like we're the animating force because we're the ones with thoughts and feelings, then it just becomes so much easier to get to a place where we find what style looks like for us. So much easier to get to a place where we're caring for ourselves more lovingly and then choosing to dress ourselves differently as a result. But we can't reverse engineer it in the sense that we can't try to use the clothing to create a feeling. Other than like a physical sensation, that's not how it works. We have to start with thinking things on purpose, practicing feeling better on purpose, which is a journey, not to be taken lightly, and then deciding how we're going to dress ourselves. And for some of us, like really truly meeting yourself where you are, like you get to keep your stretchy pants, right? I think sometimes they're like, we knock like yoga pants aren't real pants. They're absolutely real pants. That's nonsense. Like if you're meeting yourself where you are, we're just going to find like the best quality that you can afford within your budget that fit you the best for your body as it is right now. For some of my clients are executives who like have multi six-figure businesses and they're wearing the most janky, holy stuff. And they're terrified of like getting up on a Zoom screen because somebody might see what's happening, party on the bottom, business on top. So like meeting them where they are is like, we're just going to find more comfortable like joggers or house trousers to wear that don't feel so stifling, but are still comfortable. Like each of us is going to look different. But if we start to pay attention to really what's going on in our lives, how we're thinking and feeling, then the clothing is just like a supporting member. It's a supporting cast member in the movie that you're creating.
Yeah, I love that. I heard you say one time about how your clothes need to audition for you instead of you auditioning for them.
Exactly.
So, meaning like your body, I think there's always that, like, if my body doesn't fit into this piece of clothing, then there's something wrong with me. Or you said, like, clothing doesn't create the emotion. So, like, pants that don't fit, the problem is the judgment that comes with that.
Yeah. And like the pants don't fit because the pants don't fit because you're a failure or you didn't do it right. Or, oh my gosh, not again. How did you get to like all the stuff we tell ourselves? Like, there's nothing to do with that. The pants just don't happen to fit. But if we're not trying to constantly change ourselves to fit into clothing or the way things we think they should be, and we really just accept things as they are, we're going to have such an easier time dressing ourselves.
Yeah, acceptance. So important in all areas of life.
Right.
Yeah. So somebody maybe has gained a lot of weight or lost a lot of weight, or for me, like when I went through my breast cancer, the changes after having a double mastectomy and my reconstruction not working, or even if it had worked, still, my body would have been very different. It was very disorienting. So when somebody goes through a big body change, like where's a good place to start with figuring out how to dress for that new body shape?
Yeah, this is ultimately about your relationship with yourself. So if your body's undergone some big change, like we have to get to know it again. And not with an eye towards, oh, like imagine being on a date and you're like, you used to be so cool. Right? Like that would be a weird date. Like the person would feel awkward. It would just be kind of mean and a little cruel because like, well, sorry that they're not cool now, right? That'd be strange. We do this to our bodies after they've undergone changes, whether breast cancer, mastectomy, reconstruction that didn't work, even implants that have failed. I've had clients that implants, it was just not healthy anymore. They had to get them removed and the whole, emotional issue of that, like postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, like bodies are constantly in a state of flux. So we have to get really good at establishing like a relationship with it as it is not right now, not like its potential down the road once it's lost weight or how it used to be back in the day or a few months before something happened. We really have to get like, I don't know what you're going to do today. And I don't even want to say love. I think love is like a hard sell if you've been in self-loathing. I think that's like unkind to be like, you should love your body. It becomes like this shaming thing. That doesn't make any sense, right? Love yourself. It's a place where you could start like just being curious or even intrigued. And I think intrigued works a little bit better sometimes than curiosity, at least the clients that I serve. I'm just like, find a place of intrigue. Like, I don't know what you're going to do. You are a mystery to me, but I'm willing to find out. I don't know what my belly's going to do today. Like after I had a myomectomy to get tumors removed from my lady region. And I had no idea what my belly was going to do from one day to the next. Some days it was like flat and I was like, whoa, what is happening? Like, is that what it looks like when those tumors aren't chilling there? That is insane. And then some days I'd have swelly belly. And I'm like, oh, all right, I guess we're doing this today. And then other days it'd feel hard to laugh and it was tight. And then other days I felt fine and it was numb. Like I had no idea. But if I get to a place of intrigue, like I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm here for this. Well, then we can like stop the hate and the self-loathing. We have to get to love. That might be a hard sell. But we could just start to learn about this new creature as it changes over time because it's going to change. It's absolutely going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. It is going to change. Everything's always going to change, even when we don't want it to. And I like the idea of reestablishing the relationship and not treating yourself like if you wouldn't treat somebody else that way, don't treat yourself that way, and approaching it with curiosity. There's so many things that you have said that are very similar to what I would say about how we should approach our kids, right? Approaching because, like for me and a lot of other parents, we just want them to be like they were before. Want them to go back to the way they were, which wasn't working for some reason, or we wouldn't end up where we are today anyway. And just being curious about it is the kindest thing that you can do. Being curious about who they are now, where they are now, how did we get here? And then maybe being able to get to a place of just loving and accepting them where they are. Same thing for us, just like with our kids, like loving and accepting ourselves where we are right now, which is definitely a process. That's a lot of what I'm like working on. Like, okay, this is just who I am now. How do I work with this? What clothes work on this body is the kindest thing I can do for myself instead of like, originally I was like waiting it out. I'm not buying any clothes because my body's going to change again, right? How often do you hear that? Yeah. How does dressing affect other areas of your life or how you dress?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because, and I love that you extrapolated like, hey, we teach some of the same tools, some of the same concepts, because the way I teach is like style is a great starting point, right? Low barrier to entry, low cost to entry. A lot of times we can get to play with a bunch of stuff without it costing us a lot. But I can learn the tools and habits and mindsets here where the stakes are low that I can start to apply to the stuff that feels a lot more important, right? So if I learn about self-acceptance and loving what is right now, like in my underwear drawer or whatever my belly is doing when I put on my underwear today, like practicing that on myself, I get to take it to the more important areas. So if my kid's struggling with something, I've already learned, I have the habit, I have the meta skill in my brain to say, oh, I'm hoping that you would be different. And I know that doesn't work. Just like I learned that with my stomach or my thighs or my breasts or whatever this thing was happening with my body and my clothing. Same with the other humans. Okay, so I have that meta skill. I just have to start practicing it in this new area. Right? My bank account, we talk about this in Modern Charm School, right? We have 4 pillars. One of them is style, one of them is wealth generation. My bank account isn't what I want it to be. Being mad at myself, that does me no good in the world. Beating myself up of all the decisions I should have made differently doesn't make any sense, right? But if I start to ask myself, how did I end up here? What can I learn about how I ended up here so I can make some different set of choices? How can I love myself through the debt or something that happened that I didn't want to happen, but it happened anyway? I can learn that with these pantyhose got to run in them, these Spanx rolled down. That outfit actually sucks because I sweated through it and now I'm all pit stained out. Like crap happens, right? Bodies do weird things that we don't expect them to do. I can learn that skill when it's low barrier to entry, the stakes are low, when it starts to matter. And I say this because recognizing we have a whole lived human experience with a myriad of things, I can take those skills and I can apply them over and over and over and over and over and over again. And if my brain needs a refresher on how the tool works, I can start in my underwear drawer. I can start in my makeup drawer. I can start in my closet. It's just a refresher of like, oh, that's right. This is how this works. And then I get to go apply it to the stuff that feels weightier, has more import.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. Focusing on just going back to your tools, habits, and mindset and starting small with something like your makeup or underwear drawer. Or socks.
Socks. Yeah. I clean out oh my gosh, my husband. Right? The plumber's wife, how's her pipes? How's the stylist husband's, clothing drawer? I had to re-outfit him because he doesn't complain. Dude wears whatever he wears, right? And he was sitting across from me. He like crossed his leg and looked at the bottom of his foot. He had not like a hole in the sock. He had 5 holes. Because what he would notice is there was a hole would develop and he'd switch the socks to different feet. So then a hole would develop and a new face on the different like the pinky toe and the big toe. I was just like, what is happening with your socks? He's like, oh, you don't like my holy trick socks? I was like, nice pun. Love the joke. But what is happening over there? Right. And I get to show him all over again, like this little bit of self-care matters. It matters how you take care of yourself. And he has Raynaud, so he gets cold all the time. So like, we really need to keep his feet warm. He can't feel them anyway. So he's like, what does it matter? I'm like, but it does matter, right? These little tiny things. Sock drawer, underwear drawer, like meeting yourself where you are, or even lovingly cleaning out your spouse's sock drawer, like when they're not looking.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And you also were talking about low barrier to entry. I think that that's really important because then that's like, what are you most likely to do? Right. Starting there, not starting somewhere that's so big. It's like when you're setting a boundary with somebody, I always say, like, let's start small with something that you can do, and then build up to the thing that the boundary that you need, but you aren't ready to set. And I think you can apply that same thing, that same logic to going through your closet or your drawers or whatever it is. Because another thing I heard you say that I liked was that you should go through your closet or your drawers and thinking about it like your thoughts and choose like what you want to keep, what serves you.
Exactly. And we could get so much more deliberate. A lot of life is led by default, right? All of the systems automated. So part of really being present is just slowing everything down and learning to be more deliberate. I love that with boundaries, right? As opposed to like flying off the handle and setting an ultimatum, like slowing this train down. What's the first little boundary I can set? Same here. Like if I want to have a makeover and I want to show up in the world differently, well, where can I start? And then I get the reward of something having been accomplished. A task is done. I get the benefit of seeing that empty space, like all these little ancillary benefits by starting really, 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 really small.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, meeting yourself where you're at and choosing something that you can get a small win with. I used to go through this where I would see something that looks so cute on somebody else. And then I would go buy that and it's not really me, like getting down to who you are and your style that is going like, how can a woman really figure that out for herself? Like what's best for her, what's going to work, and like staying in that, this is what works for me, and letting go of those things that look cute on everybody else.
Yeah. So I think that's probably like back to our definition of style, right? So like style is your thoughts and feelings about yourself outwardly reflected. Whereas fashion, I like to call it the circus parade. Like we get to watch it as spectators and enjoy it. Like there's elephants, there's sequins, there's cowboys, there's suede, there's leather, there's fringe, like there's all kinds of cool crap happening, right? So like the runway shows, the magazines, people we see on TV or in movies, like we get to sit back and enjoy all of that as a spectator. And then we get to sit inside of the like cozy cafe where our style and ourselves, we're just chatting and hanging out. We can watch the circus parade. We can decide when we want to go participate. But it always comes back to that conversation with yourself, right? What am I thinking about myself? How am I feeling about myself? What does my lifestyle currently need? Like, so I have a client who runs a ranch. She's covered in horse shit all day. She doesn't need to be walking around in crisp white button ups because that was on a must have list. That makes no sense for her, right? So we talk about like fit has three meanings. It's to fit your physical body, which you and I have talked about a lot. It's to fit your actual lifestyle. So if you go to the gym a lot, we probably want clothes that support you going to the gym a lot. If you like to go to the church potluck and there's like modesty restrictions, we want to make sure you are outfitted for your church potlucks, right? If you love to run an online business and you're on social all the time, and we want to make sure you have everything you need for being Zoom ready or camera ready. Like each of us, our lifestyles are so different. But that's part of like, does this fit my body? Does this fit my lifestyle? Do I have what I need to support my lifestyle? And then thinking about, does this fit my own personal preferences? So while I love some really cute stuff that I see online, when I walk it through that matrix, well, I wouldn't like the way that fits on my body. For example, I love people in crop tops. I think it's so cute. I love to see little belly rolls. Like I'm into it. And if you feel comfortable, you do you, boom. So cute. However, I have an extremely large chest. I have no desire to wear a crop top. I can admire it. But when I think about like actual fit on my body, I don't think I'd be comfortable physically. When I think about my lifestyle, well, given my church's faith requirements and restrictions and like clothing modesty, that won't work. Okay. So then we can't do that. Like, and if I think about my own personal preferences, I'd be so physically uncomfortable. Like it doesn't make sense for me. So then I can let it go. Right. But I have a filter to run it through. So I'm not beating myself up because something didn't work. Like I actually wouldn't like it if I really sat back and thought about it.
Yeah, I love that. Does it fit your lifestyle, your body, and your preferences? Those were the three things you said, right? Yeah. And I think about that sometimes because I used to work in an office and I had to dress up and I loved dressing up and wearing heels like every day. And now, like, I don't even have any of those clothes anymore. I have a few of my heels that I couldn't part with, but they're packed away in a suitcase. But sometimes I'm like, why don't you like to dress like that anymore? But it's just not who I am anymore. Doesn't fit my lifestyle. I live in Florida now. It's really hot here. I would never want to dress like that all the time. Like I want to be comfortable and I don't have to. I'm like, you only see me from like the neck up most of the time anyway. So why do I have to go through all that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and each of us gets to decide what that looks like for each of us. It's going to be so different for every single person listening, which is kind of fun and as it should be.
Yeah, the big thing is don't use who you used to be against yourself or who you think you should be. Like just giving yourself permission and loving yourself as you are right now, today, not who you used to be or who you're going to be or want to be in the future, but who you are right now. That's like, I think my favorite thing of this whole message is really just meeting yourself where you're at and loving yourself where you are.
Yeah, I love that theme developed sort of naturally during our conversation. But yeah, I think absolutely.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that I missed or didn't ask about that you think is important to make sure that we get into this conversation?
No, I think we covered everything. And I love that summation, like just meeting yourself where you are and being very kind to yourself on this journey. Like if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you have bigger fish to fry. So lovies, just take care of yourself so that you can go on and take care of the other humans that you're worried about.
Yeah, I love that. That is the most important thing. You've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. And maybe today that's just taking a shower, or for somebody else, it's changing your clothes or maybe putting on red lipstick today, depending on where you are. So
exactly. And we celebrate and applaud all of it. We are so cheering you on. Absolutely.
So if somebody wants to hear more about this, where do they find you?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, chances are you like podcasts. So you can check out the Style Masterclass podcast. And they're very bingeable episodes. They're only about like 10 minutes in length. And if you wanted to work with me, you could go to judithgaton.com and find out more about my program, Modern Charm School.
All right. Thank you so much. And I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, go to heatherrosscoaching.com. If you want to help other parents who are struggling with a child's addiction, you can do it 2 different ways. First, you can share the podcast with them directly, or you can share it on your social media. Second, you can leave a review. Talk to you next week.